Thank y'all for hanging in for the afternoon session. I'm so happy to see so many of you here. I'm Carrie Thompson. I'm with the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment. We like to say water is what we do. And today I have the honor of hosting this optimistic exit of the day. So before we turn to that, though, I did a little word cloud of the sessions today. And my job is to set the context for the conversation a little bit. And I just highlighted super sprawl, suburbs grow, demand, density, growth, demand, development, density, growth, demand. Are y'all picking up on a theme? So the stage in Texas is that we are growing. And everyone knows the Texas Miracle is bringing a lot of benefits, but it is putting a strain on our water supplies. We're seeing an expectation of a 75% increase in population growth and more than a 60% increase in the next 45 years on water demand. And we're already pretty much pushing up against those limits, at least the way we've been doing business. So on top of that, we've got new water intensive industries moving into the state, data centers. I know a lot of folks are hearing about those lately. Chip developers, other industries that need a lot of water. And on top of that, we've got these warming temperatures. And I'm so happy we get to segue off of your last presentation because not only are you seeing those temperatures go up, but that means our soils are drier, our reservoirs are not filling, we have longer gaps between rain events, those rain events are shorter. And so on top of just the temperatures, we're actually seeing it's harder to fill up these reservoirs. They're not filling in the same way that we built them. And you can correct me if I've misinterpreted that. Today, as we sit here, we have river systems in our state that are experiencing historic drought. It's not a story we're telling about the 1950s. It's happening right now as we sit here. We are in the middle of historic drought in some parts of our state. In some parts of our state, we're in a mega drought, which is expected to continue for a good time yet. We are seeing record lows in reservoirs. So that's a lot of heavy facts to start off. But what I'm excited about today is we're here to talk about solutions. And we're not only going to need new supplies, we're going to need a lot of creative thinking and new approaches. And we've got, I loved the talks earlier that were saying, sort of, Dallas is a bit of a sleeper. People don't know how much innovation's happening here. So we're here to shine a light on that. So our panelists, I know everybody has access to their bios, but this is where they come in. Each one of our panelists today has been working with nature as a solution, not against it. Nature is actually part of the breakthrough, not just to improve water outcomes, but public health. And I think we got a little preview on that, wildlife habitat, and climate resilience. So I'm excited to introduce our panelists, and maybe we can just kick it off, and maybe Jerry's the obvious one to do this, but what's the current state of the Trinity watershed? How would you characterize it as far as ecological health goes and the role it plays in the region?
Well, I don't know that I'm qualified to give that grade, but certainly we have a very heavily compromised watershed, and we're still not respecting our role and our interaction with nature. That is so important out there, and we're learning about that day by day. I think, with the growth rates and all, it's a battle that is going to be really tough to win. But studies like one I'll talk about soon will help us win that battle. But it's a very highly regulated watershed. It has the 6 flood mitigation reservoirs. It has several other water supply reservoirs. And so there's not really a natural area of the Trinity. And the Trinity still is recovering from some of the industry, some of the polluting industry that we had in the area in the 60s and 70s. But a lot of that's being cleaned up. I am very much admiring Steve Smith's effort to turn the Trinity into a paddling trail and get more eyes out there. The watershed itself is very compromised. It's growing very rapidly. We have some slides that show that growth from space, and it's just remarkable the way that has happened. And so if we continue the way we are, it's going to, we're developing and we're shoving water on people downstream. We need to stop that. We need to provide storage for that water. Not do this to our neighbors downstream. Who's the most downstream? Dallas. Fortunately, we have the levees, but not through South Dallas. So anyway, that's probably enough on that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn to Melanie Ferguson. So Melanie is the director of the Dallas Water Commons. It's both water infrastructure and a space that joins functionality with beauty. Is that right?
That is correct. Well, it will be. It's not
will
quite there yet, but it's coming. Yes, that's correct.
Well, Melanie, what do you think the biggest challenges are in the watershed and for restoration of the watershed?
Well, I will defer to all of my favorite people in this room who've been on the panels prior to this one, in addition to those sitting immediately to my right. I think Jerry's right, although you said in the previous moment that it's Sue's problem, to get the word out. I actually think it's all of our problem. It's really a matter of both communication and inspiration, I think. So I'm going to deputize all of you as water, I don't know, give me a good name.
Raise your right hand.
Water czars, yes, you're all water czars now. I think, many of the things that we talk about at the Water Commons on the team, even though it hasn't been built yet, and just so you know, if you don't know, it's a public-private partnership between the City of Dallas, Dallas Water Utilities, and the Park Department to create a public park that is focused on water. And all of these issues, we're not going to be solving all of those issues, but we are creating a nature-based solution with constructed wetlands to help showcase how water can be remediated through these kind of infrastructure, nature-based solutions, as well as like the engineering. We have not met before, but you are one of my heroes. On a regular basis at the Water Commons, we are asked, do you know about John Bunker Sands in Seagoville? And we have said for a long time, yes, they're our older sister and bigger. We will never be the size that you all are, but we have a close proximity to major foot traffic eventually, being so close to downtown, just a stone's throw from downtown along the original meander of the Trinity River. And so I think to answer your question, Jerry is right. I mean, that goes without saying. But all of the development that's happening upstream, everything that happens upstream impacts us downstream. Everything that goes into our streets goes into our watershed. And so if you think about it like this, every farm and ranch in Melissa or Van Alstyne or all the way to the Red River that becomes development, that becomes new homes for all of those people who are moving here, for the industries that are moving here, using all that additional water, that in some ways is a great thing. The issue is all that water pushes downstream. So we need to make sure that those municipalities, did you say it's 150, 170?
170 plus.
170 plus in North Texas, that all of those smaller municipalities as well as the larger ones realize that what they do and how they monitor how we build and do water is really, really important, not only for them locally to to retain that water so it doesn't flood, but also for future generations. You mentioned mental health, right? Like we all do a little bit better if we've got some green space, and there are ways in which you can, it's a little bit more expensive sometimes to do the nature-based solutions upstream, but long-term, it has a really beautiful ROI. So I'll stop there, but it's not the end of the world, but we do have to do things differently.
Great segue. And next, you're up, Catriona. Yeah. So Catriona Glazebrook, she's the executive director of the Big Sister, John Bunker Sands Wetland Center. And I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about what that is and also the concept of ecological design.
Yeah, welcome everybody, and congratulations, because Dallas is an innovator. Dallas has one of the most incredible, rare, unique, successful concepts of ecological design that's actually a working model, not just here for Texas, but for other places in the world. So at the John Bunker Sands Wetland Center, we are doing amazing things thanks to the ingenuity of Dallas residents. John Bunker Sands was a visionary. He was a conservationist. He was a rancher. And part of his ranch would flood a little bit, 2,000 acres or so. And he thought, I could put a wetland there. I'm also a duck hunter. And so 10 years, no one took him up on it. And then North Texas Water District had issues finding enough water. So they say emergency is the mother of invention. So there you go. And so it was created, it started operating in 2009 as one of the largest man-made wetlands in the world. And we can supply up to 90 million gallons a day to over 2 million residents. So any of you all live in any of the North Texas cities, Irving, Rockwall, you're probably getting our water. So how is that water being cleaned in that wetland? It's a process called phytoremediation. Plants are really smart. I mean, plants oxygenated our atmosphere. There's a lot we can learn from them. Not to mention photosynthesis. Anyone have solar panels? That's biomimicry. We're copying plants there. And the other beautiful thing about this, too, is that not only is it doing this incredible water supply, to so many people that need it here in the Dallas area, but it's also a wildlife habitat. A couple of months ago, I was standing out there. I saw a flock of 5,000 red-winged blackbirds fly overhead. It took about 30 minutes for them to fly over. We have a beautiful mile of boardwalk. We are open to the public, and we also have 4th and 12th graders come to us, up to 5,000 young people a year. And when they come, they're not only taught science and engineering, and by the way, engineering is now in the Texas school standards. That's part of the science curriculum. But they come and they see the possibilities. And this is a growing field. I've known about ecological design for about 30 years. I saw one of the first models of this on a smaller scale, and it was one of the first in the US. And at that time, maybe 5 people were working in this field. Now we have a fantastic local firm called Plummer Engineering. They're the ones who helped develop our wetland. And there's also a group over in Maryland called Biohabitats. Both of these firms have up to 300-400 people working in this growing field. Just imagine cities that are beautiful, places of green space where you can go out and walk and enjoy, and places where you're right next to wildlife. Of course, our wetlands here in Texas, they are like our rainforests because of the biodiversity that they bring. They also do act like sponges. They help to collect flood water. So having more of those is a good deal. So any questions? But I'm thrilled to be here, and I just say congratulations to all of you, and I bring good news. This is happening in Dallas, and our project now, our goal is to help others do these kinds of projects. It doesn't have to be exactly like ours. Every ecological design project can be different. In fact, some of them are within one building, just doing ecological design with plants. It may be a developer who is trying to deal with water runoff from their development. So all kinds of opportunities exist.
I love that, and I think that's a great segue, Jerry, because I know you're thinking about, this is one of the largest man-made wetlands anywhere, right? And
exactly.
But you're thinking about how everyday services might provide some of these benefits. Can you share some of those ideas?
Yeah, well, I really want to foot stomp the importance of the wetlands. We published a study in 2019 where we looked at the runoff in each of the basins, 6 basins that had core resources in it. And some of the basins, the upper Brazos, the upper Colorado, are producing far less water than they used to. The Trinity, the flow rates were up. But you know why? Wastewater effluent. So if you look at the flow in the Trinity River today, especially through the summer, it is a majority of that is wastewater effluent. what's happening with the bunker sands is that wastewater effluent's being put back into that wetlands, and it's being cleaned up and then put in Lavon and then reused. We need to really do that on a larger scale. And one of the projects we're working on practically is at the western, and Sue leads this. She should be the one up here talking about this. But it's called Transportation Stormwater Integration, and it covers the 7 western counties, 85 cities, thousands of miles of stream, and we're out there proactively planning stormwater infrastructure, both gray, that would be regional detention or distributed detention, but also Dr. Jabber's green. He's part of that team. So that team is AgriLife, it's the Corps of Engineers, it's Tarrant Regional Water District, it's the COG, UTA. We're one of the technical resources on that project. But what we're doing is trying to proactively plan stormwater. We're looking at areas that we can preserve urban forest, urban prairies, and areas that would be suitable for wetlands. I would love to see any future major wastewater treatment plants have wetlands near them where they can discharge that effluent and further clean it up. We do have some threatened and endangered species in the Trinity, some mussels, alligator turtle, I think, a gar species, and we don't really understand why. But we know those flow rates are up on the low flow. We know that water is effluent. It's not the healthiest water. But so there's a lot of practical uses out there. But we hope to finish this project. We're about 2 years from finishing the TSI project. But we hope that it will suggest a layer of stormwater infrastructure that will allow growth and development to occur, but we won't see a flooding impact from that. With Dr. Jabber's stuff, his green infrastructure, we hope that that's going to clean up the watershed. It's important to catch that first flush off the parking lots and the roads and put that into bioswales and into areas where they'll be cleaned up. And so all of that is being considered as part of this project. It's a great team, and I'm so encouraged that we will successfully bring that project to the finish line and actually shift policy a little bit and shift the way urban development occurs. And hopefully, we will actually put a value to riparian areas, what they do in terms of flooding and all these other things. And hopefully that will drive some policy shifts.
Are there any surprising partners on that project or that effort? Or is it sort of the usual characters? I'm curious.
Well, no, it is not the usual characters. So having Tarrant Regional on the partnership, that's a little bit unusual. Yeah. Having AgriLife as a partner, that's really acknowledging that green infrastructure is so important now. And I think we are seeing a shift in thinking that allows these things to come to the table. And so these are wonderful developments, and I think that it bodes well for our future if we can keep this momentum going and we can keep Sue in that job and support her.
I can't wait to meet you, Sue. Well, just thinking about natural systems and this idea of engineering with nature, I wonder if you can share your thoughts about how those tools might help us address some of the challenges related to climate and the heat island effect we've heard about today.
You want to go first there?
I love it.
Well, I think it's the most inspiring aspect of what's possible. There's a huge amount of conversation in Texas right now in the legislature related to water and the water fund. We know that the leaky infrastructure is so vast that if we fixed all of those leaky pipes, we would have enough water to sustain Lubbock, San Antonio,
Wow.
Austin, in El Paso. I'm missing one,
Wow.
but it's a significant amount of water that's lost in our leaky infrastructure. However, these nature-based solutions and the ability to do wetlands, as you've mentioned, near wastewater plants, we have these new ideas that are really, really, to me, very inspiring. And I'm not the engineer, but I love hearing the engineers get referenced as we are having a shifting, I think, paradigm around how we're going to continue to do water.
Great. Other thoughts on ecological restoration and how it can help us kind of through this next chapter we're all in?
I think it's a major pathway, and the timing is now. The timing is so right for this. Not only is the need there, but as Dallas and other cities begin to build out and have this growing population, the first time I saw an ecological design project, they had a lot of trouble getting the EPA to accept it, even for what it did for cleaning waste. By the way, our plants clean the effluent from the river. It takes them about a week. They can pull out 90% of the sediment, 90% of the heavy metals, 85% of the nitrogen, 85% of the phosphorus. They are workhorses. Of course, there are particular types of plants that we put in there. We put over 2 million plants out there. Giant bulrush is one of our best. But back then, again, that first project was really not accepted, kind of unheard of. It was incredibly successful. Very little maintenance, very inexpensive. By the way, our wetland costs $280 million. The new Beau d'Arc, you've probably heard of, costs $1.6 billion, so quite a bit more expensive. Part of that is due to time, but part of that is also just what was involved in the construction of that. And now today, the EPA has on their website Citizens Guide to Phytoremediation. We have these amazing firms here, right here in Dallas and other places in the country, with experts with engineering, but also with knowledge about plants, the intelligence of plants, and what we can learn from them. Of course, they've been around millions and millions of years before humans, and we could still learn a lot from the green critters around us. Yeah.
Well, it occurs to me we've kind of got 3 stages of implementation. Got one that's sort of been proven and is functioning. Got a concept and research happening, and starting of the Dallas Commons. Thinking about each of the projects, is there a policy change that you think would make your life easier or make these projects more successful? I'm curious. I'd love to hear from each of you.
Policy shifts are really tricky, and I started out early in my career trying to drive policy shifts directly, and I did not have much success. And being a learning human, I changed my approach, and what I have found is that when you put out science and data that supports a concept, that people will shift and policies will change. So our project on the western part of the Metroplex, we're looking at integrating stormwater with roadways. So who's worked with TxDOT before? Not the easiest thing on the planet to do. I mean, they have a huge mission. They've got set ways of doing it. Change is not popular with any engineering organization, but when you've got that massive mission, it's even more difficult. So this project is actually going to look at potentially using roadways as embankments, using the bridges and culverts to regulate flows. I don't know how much of that's going to, actually be successful. Because it's going to draw TxDOT and other transportation building entities outside of their normal right-of-ways and having to look at the streams as flowage easement or right-of-ways. I am not hitting a lot of policy speed bumps. As long as we stick with good science and data, I think that the policy folks, the political folks, do look at that data, and they do adhere to it. I was really encouraged at a set of riparian area meetings that were held by the city of Fort Worth. and they're looking at creating a riparian area preservation ordinance. And in that, it was talked about a new study that Hillwood came out with that was really talking about the advantages of creating greater open space in neighborhoods, that it increased the value of those neighborhoods. And so I hope we can do that equitably across all the levels of neighborhoods. But I am seeing a shift in thinking and all that, and I think we need all of you. I go out to lots of conferences, but I'm usually talking to my people, and we're all nodding at each other, and I'm really tired of that. I'm ready for someone to argue with me. I was a debater back in high school, and I need some discourse here. So we need to reach other groups, but we are getting the message out there. Nowadays, people interview with me, and I'm usually, we have a very technical shop, and it takes a certain kind of person to be a data analysis modeling person. So I'm pretty tough on people interviewing. And nowadays, a lot of the young people say, I just want to serve my country. I just want to make a difference. And environmental things that we talked about 30 years ago had a lot of resistance to them. But nowadays, people are coming out of college, even mid-career professionals are much more open, and they're starting to realize the importance of engineering with nature. You know, there are still a lot of people that say climate change is not real. Spend a week with me. It's very real, but there's a lot of people that are recognizing that we do have an impact on Earth, and we do have to do things thinking about the impacts of our activities and minimizing those impacts.
Thanks, Jerry. And I want to save just a few minutes for questions. So,
I just wanted to add to, I think that there's a lot of room for incentivizing having green space. So Texas is 95% privately owned. We recently met with the Soil and Conservation, mainly ranchers, farmers. They were very interested in these concepts. And when John Bunker first got the idea and met up with North Texas, he actually leased that 2,000 acres to them at a very nice profit, by the way. it was quite a nice profit at that time. So I think in showing people that this could be incentivizing for them, and maybe even having some policies that help private landowners, because again, prices in property are really over the roof right now. And so having alternatives for people who own land that might say, this can make economic sense for me to do this, rather than sell this and have 5,000 more houses on it or something. And just what you were saying, serve the country. I think it's good I like to use the word conservation versus conservationists. It's because serve is in the middle. I think it's about serving people and the planet. And I think we're coming around to that. And hopefully a lot of folks see that connection. So.
great.
I was just going to add, there's, in addition to the extraordinary example of what you're talking about at the place where you are, there's a precedence for this also in other places, but especially in New York City, there was a time in which they sort of city planners figured out that they could help pay for land or keep farmers farming upstream so that they wouldn't have to they wouldn't have to build mitigation in the same way that they would otherwise. And so that's another example of, using nature to keep, the infrastructure that is growing.
That's right. And I was going to say, we'll do a quick round of close our session out before we take a few questions. What's giving you hope right now? Just real quick, and you already gave us one.
Well, I think the people are giving us a great deal of hope. I think, for the most part, we have a society of folks that, want to make the world a better place. But another thing I don't want to leave off is technology. In the last 25 years of my career, we created modeling systems, new data sets. These reservoirs that you can see in 2015, we were forecasting those reservoirs a week ahead of time to within 1/10 of a foot. I mean, that's what the technology did for us. So we have modeling software that we developed with the University of Colorado that allows you to completely understand what's going on in a watershed, all the inputs and outputs. We just have to employ all this technology. And so that technology, I think, and the data, the analysis that comes out of that, that will drive the policy shifts. It will drive changes in thinking. But with Dallas-Fort Worth and the growth we're having, the water supply issues that we're going to run into as we go into a deep drought here, we saw this in 2011 to 2014, are going to drive a lot of changes here. But I'm very optimistic because we have just an army of people out there building the city. They are open and receptive to change. And then we have all these new technologies that allow us to do it better.
Great. What do you think? What's giving you hope?
What's giving me hope is partnering with nature. The generations before us partnered with nature in a very intimate way. Our society, urbanization, so forth, moved away from that a bit. I think we're coming around back to that and saying, hey, there was something to that. We're not going back in time, though. We're going forward with our new understanding, but also the understanding the wisdom of the plants and how we can work with them. Sometimes we may feel we're all on our own dealing with climate change or pollution or all these things. We're not alone. We have nature. We've got plants that, again, created our oxygenated atmosphere. We wouldn't be here. Some people say plants are the ancestors of humankind. In a way, there's a little bit of truth to that, because without oxygen, we wouldn't be here. So that really gives me hope that this kind of project where I'm working now and around the world and the opportunities and possibilities. So it's a really good time to be alive.
I'm inspired by the fact that we have in the past, I think, thought about urban and rural as separate. And nature and the urban environment are not separate. It's all a part of the same whole, and I think we're becoming more and more aware of that. I also find that these two organizations are kind of my heroes in the water space, in addition, again, to the one right next to me at John Bunker Sands. If you're interested in furthering your deputization as a water czar, please look up the Texas Runs on Water campaign that the Texas Water Foundation has created, and I think it will become increasingly out there as the state continues to have this conversation about water and how it impacts every industry. Every household, every business, every watershed is a part of how life works in Texas and beyond. So that's one, and then Texan by Nature, which is created by Laura Bush. Their work related to water and the Texas Water Action Collaborative is stellar. And so again, that's a place to be a resource and be inspired. And they are the ones that kind of keep me going on a day when I think, how are we going to get this done? Just keep going.
Thank y'all. I'm feeling better. How are y'all doing out there? I'd love to take a few questions. One here.
So I love the positive message. Thank you. That's great. You got great deputies here because we're all at birthday. So
Yeah, that's right.
it's kind of like still speaking to your audience, Jerry, because we're already kind of in the boat with you.
Yeah.
I love everything hearing about the potential of expertise and science and data and all this. But I'm from here, and Dallas is run by business, and a very significant part of the Dallas-Fort Worth community is property developers. So will they, in your expectation, Jerry, of good humans just go, yeah, we need to change the way we do things so our concrete jungle is more friendly and more natural, or are we gonna have to change regulations and force that change? Because I don't know where that's at right now, but I know that in business as usual is very powerful. Inertia is a big deal to change it for these better reasons we're talking about here. So I'd love an outlook on how we're going to be building our DFW area better and smarter with this knowledge, because those are different people that aren't necessarily in the room right now. So, and I know your world,
Yeah.
so it makes no surprise to me that you're going to answer that.
Well, great. I mean, it's an important point. We're sitting on land that's adjacent to the original Trinity River. I mean, how many people know it's like a stone's throw away behind the Anatole? Like, we moved our river in Dallas, and that was in some ways a way to keep the city safe, but it also was a development play. We are a development city. North Texas is going to continue to be a development play. I was recently in a conversation with, again, let's reference Sue Alvarez, and some developers, because they're trying to make sure that that study that Jerry and others are a part of actually lands someplace. We're pretty resistant sometimes to regulation in Texas. And I think that will continue to be true, but I think there's a growing understanding among all industries that Texas really does run on water and that we have to do things differently. I mean, whether you're talking about oil or you're talking about tech, whether you're talking about just the nature of building houses, we can't build a lot west of Fort Worth because there's not water there. So what does that mean? So I think it's a combination. I think we're pretty resistant to someone telling us in Texas, you got to do this. But I also think that those same businesses and legislative powers recognize that we are not going to thrive economically if we're not sort of taking care of business in this way. I feel, and maybe it's naive, but I think that the more of us who are deputized to, even if we're not water scientists, to talk about water is the way that we move things forward. So, if you're a comedian, please start telling jokes about water. If you're a songwriter, please write some songs about water or sing the old standards. I think that the more we talk about water in every aspect, the more we're gonna, get everybody on deck.
Let's get one more question. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Maria Bocalandro from Dallas College. So I'm always thinking, are the universities and the colleges producing the professionals you need in the workforce? What are the trends? What kind of programs should be preparing so that there's the silver tsunami. Everybody's all the baby boomers are retiring. These future generations. How do we have to form them so that we take care of our water in all types of the process? Before consumption and then after consumption.
Well, I think it's never too early to start. So I had mentioned we have 4th through 12th graders that come through, and many of the high school students, I think kids can do a lot more than we give them credit for. So they're coming out to our site. And by the way, you all are invited. This is a public site. It's where we're at, where our center is. It's all cleaned up. We have a mile of boardwalk. Come out with your families, or if you've got kids, invite the teacher out. But yeah, so they're coming out and they're learning about this possibility. They're also learning science, ecology, and engineering. They're learning things about flow and other aspects of engineering when they come out. There are some programs that are beginning, specifically to your question, and in fact, one of the plumber engineers is teaching at a program called Ecological Design, and at the center, our plans are to offer a certified program in ecological design for high school students and working with universities. We're working with Baylor right now, but it really is important as a new way of thinking, and this goes to your question too, that we're kind of locked. How do you lock stuff out of the kind of ways of doing things? And so working with young people is important, and carving out that career path for them, and it is developing. And again, expertise in science, plants, and engineering are all key to that.
I know some people who would love to know that you were asking that question. I think there is a lot of focus on people who are thinking about water in the notion that the workforce for water needs to be increased, and there are programs that are being implemented towards that. Again, to plug the Texas Water Foundation and the Water Fund, that is part of those conversations.
I have time for a couple quick comments.
Okay.
Yeah, so students decide what they're going to study in school. We don't make that decision for them. I will say at UTA we have a wonderful undergraduate and graduate program, but we live in a world of entertainment. Sports, reality TV stars. It's a different world than when I grew up, and so water and engineering, technical things, they are not being promoted as being, romantic, sexy. And when I lecture at the college, I ask the students, what are you going to be when you grow up? And very, very few of them talk about going into water. And I don't feel that that's a failure on the college's part, although we are going to make some modifications to our entry-level programs to put a higher emphasis on water. But I think our society as a whole has de-emphasized technology and science, which is what our country is built on. And everyone knows the names of the quarterbacks in the NFL. They all know about video games. They know about all these TV shows and all this input, but who knows anything about water? I am not that smart. And then Garrett and others introduced me as some genius, and I keep looking around, who are they talking about? But we really have to change our messaging in society, and we have to really, kind of shift and talk about what's important. When you're in high school, who are the heroes? The football players, the pep rallies, right? But do we have pep rallies for the academic decathlon winners and those types of people? And I think we've got to really refocus in our education system on technology.
Thanks, Terry. And I'm also working at a university, and I will say I just left an event Saturday, our Earth Day event there, and several professors were gathered up and sort of beleaguered, but they all said what keeps them going are the students in their classrooms right now. They are on fire, and so I am inspired and hopeful. Plus, we have all these deputies here, and I think we're going to leave here with a Sue Alvarez baseball card. We can start trading.
Amen.
Thank you all for your attention and your energy, and a wonderful day. Thank you, Peter.